Would I be the a-hole for divorcing my wife because she wants to have a child? 6 years ago I, 28 got drunk at a friend's wedding and a woman, Anna 39F, whom I had rejected multiple times throughout the night, ended up forcing herself on me while I was nearly passed out. It was a whole mess and I fell into a deep depression. Things got worse when Anna showed up at my door after a few weeks saying she was pregnant. I begged her to have an abortion and leave me alone, but my dad and stepmother welcomed her into our house like nothing had happened. I never wanted to have kids, so when this happened, I was clear with Anna that I didn't want anything to do with her, but I'd pay child support. I also cut contact with my dad for supporting her. After a few months, my son was born and Anna just disappeared. Nobody knew where she went, or they didn't want to tell me. My dad also refused to help because I had cut him off, so I was on my own. To be honest, I fell in love with my baby right away. Seeing him fight to survive, and then holding him in my arms was the happiest moment of my life. And while it was hard, I made it work, just the two of us. Then, 3 years ago I met my wife Claire, 26F. We dated for 1 year, and have been married for 2. Even when we were just dating, she was always perfect, and she adored my son Archie, 5 now. She would play with him, and read him stories, and never said anything bad about him. She knew what had happened, but she was so loving and understanding, and I thought I had won the lottery by meeting her. The same happened when I met Claire's family. Everyone was so welcoming and they loved Archie so much. They offered to babysit him, and even took him on vacation so Claire and I could have a weekend to ourselves. A few weeks ago I told Claire that I wanted to have a vasectomy, so we could have a better sex life. She asked me if I was really sure, and when I said yes, she got very quiet and changed the subject. Now, even before we got married, I was very clear that I didn't want any more children. At the time she said she was fine with that because we already had Archie. I knew she was upset, so I brought it up constantly until she finally admitted that she was hoping I'd changed my mind so we could have another child. Claire said she understood why I didn't want kids in the first place due to my childhood, but that I had become a perfect dad to Archie, and I'd be a perfect dad for our second child too. She also said she had asked him if he wanted a little brother or sister, and he had been very excited about it. I got upset when she said this and accused her of trying to manipulate my son, so we ended up having a big fight about it. The next day she apologized, but she still wanted me to think it over. She said she'd support me no matter what I decided, but that this was important to her. I told her that I was hurt because she had never mentioned this before, and she just said that she was allowed to change her mind. Finally, she told me that we should talk with her parents so I could hear from them before making a decision. I admit I freaked out because I didn't want to discuss my sex life with my in-laws, but she assured me that she had just told them because they were close and she was looking for advice on how to bring it up to me. Anyway, last night we had dinner with her parents. We visit them every other Thursday since that's my father-in-law's day off, and it was a disaster. I explained how I'd never wanted kids until Archie was born, and how even then he was the exception. For their part, they told me how much Claire wanted to have a child of her own, and how this could be good for all of us. Where things got messy was when they said they wanted to have their first grandchild. I told them that Claire and I had been talking about her adopting Archie, and my mother-in-law said, but he still wouldn't be my real grandson. They also said how they loved my son, but they couldn't love him like a real family member because they were not related by blood. Finally, my wife said she was having second thoughts about the adoption because Archie already had a mom and she didn't think she'd be able to bond with him like a real mother. So that's also why she wanted to have a child of her own. I was devastated, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of my in-laws, so I just told them I'd think about it and to give me some time. So now I'm sitting at home thinking that I don't really know Claire. I didn't know she felt this way about my son, and wondering if she had been pretending all this time. If we have another kid, I believe she and her family will just ignore Archie in favor of their real grandchild. And if we don't have another child, I fear she will just resent us or even become abusive towards my son. But at the same time, I don't want to throw away an otherwise perfect relationship, and I really love Claire. Would I be the AH if I divorce my wife over this? I don't know if I'm overreacting, or if this relationship can be saved. Any advice would also be welcome since I don't have anyone else I can talk to right now. Edit. Thanks everyone for the comments. I haven't been able to reply to everyone, but I'd like to answer some questions. 1. Did I talk to my wife about not having children before we got married? Yes. We had the discussion at least 3 times and she always mentioned she was okay with it. 2. Do I treat her like a nanny, or is there money involved? No. I earn more than she does, but she still has a good job. She does work from home, but Archie is still in daycare because I want him to socialize with other children, and I didn't want her work to be affected by having to look after a toddler all the time. 3. Will I get therapy? I've had a therapist for 4 years now. Archie is also in therapy. 4. Why didn't I have a vasectomy years ago? I have no excuses here. I'm just an idiot. 5. Why did I get married after only 1 year of dating? We were both in love and rushed into things. I'm also an idiot for this, apparently. 6. Did I get a DNA test? WTF, I didn't get a paternity test right away when he was born because I didn't care. I had already put my name on his birth certificate, and after Anna left I just wanted to take care of him. I did eventually get a paternity test done. Spoiler alert, he is mine. But it was mostly for legal purposes since I wanted to take him out of the country for a job opportunity. 7. What happened to Anna? Who knows? I never heard from her after she left. My dad said he didn't know anything, and my friends from the wedding said they didn't know where she went either. 8. Did I report Anna? I tried. Unfortunately, I grew up in a country with some outdated ideas, and I wasn't taken seriously by the police. Finally, I know that my in-laws were biased and that they would take Claire's side. I knew that when I agreed to have dinner with them, but I genuinely wanted to know if there was something Claire wasn't telling me. I was, and still am, confused and full of doubts about the whole kids thing. So I wanted to understand where she was coming from and what she was feeling. I just never imagined they felt the way they did about my son. Update 1. I appreciate everyone who took the time to read my previous post and commented with their advice. I was happy to see so many people sharing their own experiences as step-parents or stepchildren, and those who tried to put themselves in my wife's shoes. It gave me a new perspective, and that helped a lot. I also saw some people asking for an update, so here it is. Since Archie plays football every Saturday, I asked a friend of ours, whose son is also on the team, if she could look after Archie for a while. I wanted to have this conversation with Claire without my son present in case we started arguing again. So we just headed home to talk after the game ended. I know a lot of people said I should just divorce my wife both to protect my son and to let her move on. But please don't be mad at me. When we sat down to talk, I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage just yet. At that moment, I was willing to compromise with Claire about a second child, as long as we got couples therapy to address her and her family's feelings towards Archie. Even after the initial fight, when I said I wanted a vasectomy, I was mostly confused about what to do since I just wanted my family to be happy. Anyway, I started by asking her to explain why, and when she had changed her mind. Claire started to apologize right away, and she told me that she had always dreamed of having a big family. She said that she tried to convince herself that she could accept not having children because she really loved me, and she also loved Archie. She admitted to lying when I had asked her about it because she didn't want to break up and she felt I was giving her an ultimatum of either choosing to have kids or choosing me. I never intended it to be one. I just didn't think it was fair for any of us to be in a relationship if our goals didn't align. She also admitted that she had always been hoping I would change my mind once I saw what an excellent mom she was to Archie. What surprised me the most is that apparently my mother-in-law tried to convince her not to get married because it wasn't fair of her to expect me to change. Claire also told me it was mother-in-law's idea to babysit Archie and do all those things together so my wife could bond with him and get used to the idea that he may end up being our only child. When I asked her why her mom had made the comments about blood being important, Claire said she had asked her parents to say that to convince me why it was important for her to have her own kids. I told her how hurt I had been by what they said, and also when she told me she had changed her mind about the adoption. Claire said she was just scared that one day Archie would want to reconnect with his birth mother, and that he wouldn't love her anymore. Apparently she had been reading a lot of stories from other step-parents who had been cast aside, especially when the birth parents showed up again or if there was a divorce involved. Her anxiety got worse around a year ago. According to Claire, she had always introduced herself as Archie's stepmom when she picked him up from the daycare because she didn't want to take Anna's place. I lost my patience and reminded her that Anna had abandoned us, so there was no place to take. At this point we started arguing and going in circles. She accused me of not understanding how hard it is to be a step-parent, and I told her she was fighting against windmills. After we calmed down a bit, She told me she got even more scared of being replaced when Archie started asking about his mom. She also felt guilty because she was sure he only asked because she kept correcting everyone about the whole mother/stepmother thing. She also said I made it worse because I didn't tell him the truth about Anna and tried to sugarcoat things by telling him that his mom felt guilty because he had been born very sick and she didn't want to see him suffer. Honestly, I just didn't know what to tell him because I didn't want him to feel sad about being abandoned. Claire accused me of still caring about Anna, WTF, and that's why I didn't want to paint her in a bad light. When I told her I just panicked and made up a lie at that moment, she said I should have just refused to answer and take Archie to a therapist. We did get him one the same month. That's when Claire said I should have tried to find Anna, so we could have split custody and Archie could be with his real mom. I admit I lost it and started yelling at her that Anna was just a horrible person, and that if it were up to me she'd never see Archie. She had essayed me. She had tried to manipulate me when she got pregnant. She had abandoned my son right after he was born and, after all these years, she had never bothered to reach out. Claire yelled back saying I couldn't understand what a woman goes through, and that maybe she left because of PPD, and that I made it worse by just giving up and moving to another country where Anna couldn't find me. I said that wasn't the reason why we left and she knew it. I also told her how everyone who knew me back home had my contact information and my address, so it's not like I was hiding. What finally broke me is that she said it was my fault that Anna left because I refused to step up and do the right thing by marrying Anna. She tried to apologize right away and said she didn't mean it, but I just told her to leave and that I wanted a divorce. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I just locked myself in Archie's room and started to cry like a baby until she left. She just packed some stuff and later sent me a text saying she'd be staying with her parents. The rest of the day was a blur. I want to pick up my son and briefly told my friend I was getting a divorce. She and her wife hugged me and told me they would support us in any way they could, especially if I needed someone to look after Archie. I spent the rest of the day with him and we decided to have a pijamada, just the two of us. We ordered pizza, played with his new toys, and watched some movies until he fell asleep. Since I can't sleep, I thought I'd write this update to vent or something. I feel like my life just imploded and I'm so heartbroken. I don't even know how Archie is gonna take it, so that's also gonna be hard. Anyway, I guess this is my final update since there's nothing else to say. Thank you again for all the advice. TLDR. I spoke with my wife. Things were worse than I thought, and I've been an idiot for 3 years. She moved out and I will be initiating the divorce on Monday. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for not giving my boyfriend a threesome? This is a throwaway because too much identifying info is on my main. IF29 met my boyfriend, Michael, M35 at a show I performed in. I am a theater person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We have been together now for a little over a year. His sister got married last week, and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid, but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me, but I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our sex life and having a threesome. He said since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much and said so, and it devolved into a petty Cold War. And he started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all until the day before the wedding asking what time he needed to pick me up since we can't go separate otherwise people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me but I shied away and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill. Not too long after 911 was called, I realized I was having an allergic reaction but had my pen, but still had to be carted off by the ambulance. And that's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics and again when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released by the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up so I woke up my best friend and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning Michael called me but I was still asleep, so he left me a lengthy voicemail yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point as I am dramatic and this is all too much. So I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have a legit allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew that the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake, as all the food had signs saying what it was, and what the ingredients were, as I am not the only person with allergies that attended. He left telling me that he can't talk to me when I am this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered, he then told me how I am hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I don't respect him even in intimate settings, or want to hear him out regarding his needs and make things about me. I am so confused because to me this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there. So to have him tell me I am in the wrong through me. Am I the a-hole? Edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I have actually never considered he gave me something I am allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use against me to leverage in our argument. But I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Small update. Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out, and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know I was in the hospital and feels bad he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off much-needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay. He is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Second edit. For any and all of you calling me stupid or implying I am a child and why am I still with this guy, etc., just know, you remind me a lot of him and how he used to put me down and bully me, and it's a real wonder of mine if you treat people in your life like he did me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. Update 1. Well, many of you were right, I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch insisting he pay for it all, and it was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of, if I hurt you, or that you're feeling X or Y feeling, etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple, and I kinda sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the GF of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I am rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my one single allergy, and that he didn't bother to tell his own girlfriend he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut, and implied I am an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong, and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, you know what, don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night. To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I am a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done, and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I can without blaming Michael for prior illnesses without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church where we can pray together, talk it out and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say at this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate, and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails rolling in that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Doe videos, and she usually ends things with practical shit like, do your laundry, or something, so I will just say, live for yourself, feed your soul, and know you are enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to get there, and I hope we all make it to the other side, content, and filled with love and joy. And by the way, if you Michael, I know you are reading this. I know you know it's me. And I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. Update 2. I forgot to add to my post, but I didn't want to bring the threesome requests into it. Well, I sent his daddy screenshots of some texts. If you like some drama, here are the top 2. It was the night I sent him home after he tried and failed to pressure me into sex. He told me that I was missing out and should be grateful since your body makes me sick, but my love for you is stronger. Would it kill you to be grateful enough to just do a handjob? And 2. On his birthday, I had just been in the hospital after passing out from exhaustion and dehydration and went straight to his party. I stayed at his place until everyone left, and I left soon after helping clean all but the kitchen, and he sent, "You could have cleaned the kitchen, then, or stayed over, for sex. Then, you're a waste of time if I don't even get birthday sex. Thanks a lot." And after both B suggested adding a third. His dad hasn't responded. Update 3. It has been a hot minute. I forgot about my posts until I was watching a YouTube video on Reddit stories, and the story reminded me that I never did update. I found a church in my city a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laugh laid back. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now I am back to being the heathen I am, lol. My ex quickly moved on, and he had a new girlfriend within a month of us breaking up. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook, and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and ex have been dating, and how long they knew each other. Childhood friends, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife. And if I cannot forgive, then I am proving I am not, and to let her know as she cannot marry him until I make this clear. I shit you not. Seeing the screenshots of the chat with my new church buddies, my friends sent vomiting emojis, and that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right and replied with, "Yeah, marry him if that's what you want." And nothing more. I'm getting messages from members of the church, but I don't care much. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyable really, and it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me. But for now, just for fun, I'm going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings. Well, no, that's true. I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it. It's just not normally my thing, so I am curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will let you know.